My brothers and sisters of Uganda, when the United Nations speaks out about an election, when global institutions begin to raise concerns about the country's democratic process, it is not because they care more about your future than you do. It is because the warning signs are already clear, and the world has watched this pattern unfold many times before. The question is no longer whether trouble is coming. Trouble is already present. The real question is whether you will confront it united or allow yourselves to be torn apart. Let me speak plainly, from the heart. I address you not as a president, not as an outsider giving instructions, but as an African brother who has watched this continent suffer again and again because aging rulers refuse to release power, while young people pay the price with their lives. I speak as someone who understands the moment when a generation finally reaches its limit. What you are witnessing in Uganda today is not new. We have seen it before. I have seen it in my own Burkina Faso. We have seen it across West Africa, East Africa, the Sahel, and throughout this continent that too often fails to learn from its own scars. There is a pattern, a sequence that repeats itself relentlessly. First comes tension. You feel it everywhere. In harsh conversations. In nervous glances. In the sudden presence of soldiers where children once played freely. Then repression follows. Opposition figures are harassed and arrested. Journalists who ask difficult questions disappear into detention rooms. Human rights defenders are labeled enemies. Young people who demand change are accused of being tools of foreign interests. Then violence begins. Not always with bullets at first. Sometimes it starts as the violence of silence. The violence of fear. The violence of an internet that suddenly goes dark so the truth cannot spread. Peaceful gatherings are broken up by security forces meant to protect citizens, not threaten them. And then election day arrives. But by that point, my brothers and sisters, it is no longer a choice. It becomes a performance. A ritual where the ending is already known, and the only uncertainty is how many people will pretend everything is normal. The United Nations Human Rights Office has already warned you. They have stated openly that this election is taking place in an atmosphere of intimidation and repression. They have documented the targeting of opposition supporters, the restrictions placed on journalists and activists, and the force used to disperse peaceful assemblies. But none of this is new to you. You do not need the UN to tell you what you already see and feel. Their statement is not revelation. It is confirmation. It is the world finally acknowledging what you have been enduring quietly. When the UN issues such warnings, understand what it truly means. It means the situation has already crossed dangerous lines. It means they fear escalation. They have studied Africa's history and recognized the signals that come before explosions. This is not speculation. This is pattern recognition. When political space shrinks, opposition is systematically crushed, media freedom is attacked, security forces are turned against citizens, and violence becomes likely, the world raises alarms not out of love, but out of experience. They have seen how this ends. What is happening in Uganda is not merely about ballots or dates or election results. It is about power versus people. It is about a system that has ruled too long colliding with a generation that no longer fears it. On one side stands President Yoweri Museveni, a man in power since 1986. Consider what that means. Entire generations have been born, grown up, and reached adulthood under one ruler. Promises repeated. Methods unchanged. Power uninterrupted. When Museveni came to power, Bobi Wine was a child. Decades later, that same child has become the symbol of resistance against the man who has ruled since his birth. One lifetime. One ruler. One narrative. And now on the other side stands Bobi Wine, not just as a politician, but as a symbol. A symbol of youth frustration. A symbol of refusal. A symbol of a generation unwilling to accept stagnation. He is not a product of elite political training. He is a cultural voice turned political challenge, a musician who sang the people's pain until the people asked him to lead. This is what frightens the system. Not Bobi Wine the individual, but what he represents. A generation born under one ruler. Youth locked out of opportunity. Citizens exhausted by recycled promises. A connected population that shares information, organizes, documents, and awakens politically. A force that is difficult to silence. I have learned something important. Systems like this do not trust the people. When soldiers flood the streets before elections, when activists are arrested, when fear becomes policy, when the internet is shut down, it sends one clear message. The system does not trust its citizens. A government confident in popular support does not fear communication. Leaders who truly believe they are chosen freely do not silence journalists, shut down networks, or break up peaceful gatherings. Internet shutdowns exist to control narratives. When people document events, live stream reality, and share information, power loses control. Authoritarian systems attack communication first, then journalists, then observers, because light threatens darkness and truth threatens oppression. January 15th is dangerous. Not because of the opposition, but because the system has made it so. Long-serving rulers turn elections into security operations, not democratic exercises. What you are witnessing resembles a military campaign, except the enemy is not external. The enemy is the people. My brothers and sisters, understand this clearly. What is unfolding in Uganda is larger than Uganda itself. That is why voices from Burkina Faso speak about it. That is why Africans across the continent are watching closely. That is why young people everywhere feel connected to your struggle. This is part of a wider continental moment. Across Africa, youth are rejecting old political agreements that no longer serve them. Citizens are questioning leaders from liberation eras who believe past sacrifices grant them permanent ownership of power. People are demanding accountability, not nostalgia. They are refusing to inherit silence. We have seen this energy before. In West Africa. In the Sahel. Among young Africans in the diaspora who reject the idea that corruption and dictatorship are cultural norms. The difference in Uganda is how deeply rooted the system is. And deeply rooted systems do not reform easily. They resist. They push back. They use every instrument of power to survive. History teaches us something important. Long-serving rulers never believe they will fall. They see themselves as exceptions. As necessities. As irreplaceable. This belief is dangerous because once a leader becomes the state, any challenge feels like an attack on the nation itself. Power stops being personal. It becomes a network. A military structure. An economy of loyalty. A political elite dependent on continuity. Foreign interests invested in predictability. Institutions shaped around one personality. When people ask why such leaders do not simply retire, they misunderstand the reality. If they leave, protections disappear. Secrets surface. Structures collapse. That is why transitions are always the most dangerous moments in a nation's history. Now I speak directly to the youth of Uganda. You are different. You are informed. You are connected. You can see beyond borders. You can compare systems. You can think independently. I urge you, sincerely. If your preferred candidate does not win, do not turn on each other. Do not allow politicians to weaponize your anger. Do not let them use you to destroy your own future. We have seen this too often. Youth killing youth. Communities fractured. Families torn apart. And when the dust settles, politicians remain safe and wealthy while ordinary people bury their children. Your frustration is real. Your exhaustion is real. The lack of jobs. The stolen resources. The delayed futures. I understand this deeply. But there is a way to fight without destroying ourselves. There must be another kind of struggle. A struggle of ideas. Of organization. Of patience. Of documentation. Of truth. Chaos may look powerful, but it often serves those who fear accountability. Do not die for leaders who will sleep peacefully while you burn. Even if your candidate loses, do not despair. No ruler lasts forever. No system survives indefinitely. History eventually bends toward the people. But you must survive to see that day. Unity is how futures are built. The real question is not only who wins on January 15th. It is what happens afterward. If the current leadership remains, can the system return to normal after fear has been broken and legitimacy questioned? Maintaining control becomes expensive. More soldiers. More surveillance. More repression. And eventually even that fails. If the opposition wins, will power transfer peacefully? Will military and patronage networks accept change? Will foreign interests accept disruption? These uncertainties make transitions dangerous. This is why caution matters. This is not simply about Uganda. It is about whether Africa continues accepting permanent rulers or finally demands renewal. The UN warning is not the story. The reason it was necessary is the story. What you do next is the story. Vote with dignity. Vote without fear. Document everything. Let the world see. And when the process ends, remain united. Stay peaceful. Think long term. This is about Uganda's future. Africa's future. About breaking cycles that trap generations. Change always comes. Sometimes peacefully. Sometimes violently. Sometimes quickly. Sometimes slowly. But it comes. The only question is the cost. So vote freely. Stay calm. Stay united. Let history record not chaos, but courage. One day your children will ask what you did in 2026. Make sure your answer honors them. May peace guide Uganda. May wisdom shape your choices. May the future you build be worthy of the sacrifices already made.